Hi, everyone. Thanks for spending your Friday afternoon with me here. I am trying some new stuff with LinkedIn Live, and thanks for hopping along for that. So, this is my third LinkedIn Live, and we're going to grow that. The Level Up podcast, which has been amazing, is now going to switch to this format. So, we're streaming live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we'll see where it goes from there. Today, I am rejoined by a former guest on the Level Up podcast. And it's funny, at the end of the conversation that we had, we're like, we should do this again. And then we said, let's put it on the calendar. And we put it on the calendar. And a year later, here we are. And then she texted me, she sent me a message afterwards. It's like, hey, this is on our calendar. Are we still doing it? We absolutely are. So we're doing it now. So my guest today is Christie Stukenholtz, and she's going to hop back on. The first conversation was really great. We specifically talked about how to put an all-star team together. And there were so many nuggets of wisdom from that. And I have actually applied a lot of what I learned from that conversation. So one, we're going to revisit that. And then we're going to go through other things that we've learned from founding a company, some of the surprises and things that have happened afterwards. So please join me in welcoming Christie Stukenholtz back to Level Up Podcast. Hi, Christie.
Thanks for having me, James. 1 year later, I'm excited to revisit and see what answers have changed and stayed the same and all that's evolved for both of us, I know.
Yeah, so we're going to have to do this annually now. Yeah. It's a thing. Right? So I'm excited to have you back on. So let's start with our first podcast. I had to listen back in preparation for our conversation today. But one of the surprising things for me was listening to how many things I took away from that and actually applied it in my life. And I was like, oh, that's where that came from. And one of them was hire the empty seat. Yeah. So we talk about that a lot on the team, actually, of when we're trying to hire for people. I say out loud, like, hey, sometimes we got to, and it's become a phrase around Bella Groves. And I now know to attribute it to our conversation.
Awesome. That makes me so glad. And I'll tell you, it's something I still think about every single day. Yeah. And the faster you start growing and the more you need great talent on your team, the harder sometimes it can be to really hold out. And so, we have that conversation a lot within our organization of we got to hold out for the very best person for that role. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll pay for it every day if we don't.
Totally. Yeah. The idea that when you put an all-star team together, one of the things I've learned from we're 3 years into Bella Groves, and you are with how many years are you in with your organization?
We're about 6 official years, about 10 if you count everything leading up to it. So
yeah. So you're like my big sister, who's that started a little bit ahead, but it really makes for interesting conversation. And for me in particular on this side, Christie, I get to learn from like, okay, this is where it could look a few years down the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, putting an all-star team together, I've got some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? 6 years in and 1 year further from our last conversation, are there any things that have evolved for you in your thinking about all-star teams?
I will tell you, it is still my number one priority, and it is still the thing that I'm honestly most proud of in these 6 years that we've been in business. And so it is something I think about all the time. When you start a company, one of the things that I think is helpful is to get clear with yourself on why you're starting it. And for some people, the reason they start a company is to build a product. Right. And get that product to be as great as it can be, and then maybe sell it or see if there's someone that could leverage it in a different way. For some people, building a company, and that's assembling a group of people behind the product and also to build something even bigger than the product. Right. And so not that your vision cannot change. Of course, it will always evolve. But if you can, when you get started, think about what am I trying to actually do here, it will lay a nice foundation for every decision that you make thereafter. So part of the reason I think why I lean so far into the people and the all-star team and having, the right talent in the right seats is because I'm building a company. and our
Yeah.
product will continue to change and evolve, and we'll add to it and take away from it, and continuous improvement, right? But it's really
Yeah.
the company I'm after that is going to be the group of talented people executing that big vision.
Yeah, I love that thinking. Um, you've got the long run, and it's not just an individual person here or there. What are your thoughts on, when people? I'm sure in the 6 years you've had people leave your organization that were maybe key members of your team.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's your thinking related to when things like that happen? Because I've got some thoughts on that.
I would love to hear your thoughts. To be
Okay.
quite frank, it hasn't happened as often as one might think. It certainly
Yeah.
has, but we spend so much time on the selection side of things that we haven't had as many team members, leave or
Yeah.
been let go as I think might be typical. I will tell you, because we are a highly relational group and we are transparent and we communicate
Mm.
and we know everyone has each other's best interest at heart, we have had some people self-select out.
Hmm.
And I think, the people that have left, it's been on good terms, right? And
Yeah.
we like them as a person. And just sometimes the organization grows in a different way. So
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned from the first couple of years is, so there was a moment in our organization maybe about a year and a half in, where I lost some key members of our leadership team all within a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah.
And so that was very, very stressful for me. And one, you kind of feel like a failure. You're like, oh, something's going on where, not one person, but multiple people are going to leave the organization. And I think those are things that founders and don't probably talk about. They don't even want to think about it, much less
Yeah.
talk about it. Um, but two things kind of happened out of that. One was realizing that you still have to figure out, in the midst of all of the business stuff, because it feels so critical in the first year or
Right.
two, especially. It feels like every deliverable is critical, every milestone is critical. But now I know all the stuff that I really stand for, which is like building the trust, building, the like personal care for somebody else. I thought, and I think I'm good at that now, but I looking back on it, I realized there were so many times I put the objective ahead of like the
Hmm.
long term. These are the people I want to be with for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And I think in the first year in particular, that becomes really, really difficult.
Yeah.
If we don't hold out for the right person, we will pay for it every day. Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
amen to that, Adrian. Um, and then the second thing that I learned from that time was, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. There were a couple of months of really, really tough times, but each of them are okay. They're on to bigger and better things, which I'm happy
Hmm.
for. And it
Hmm.
also opened the doorway to people that, at the time that I needed it, after the lesson,
Hmm.
people came in, and I mean, they're going to be lifers. I really feel that.
Yeah.
And I'm better equipped to realize, take a breath. This
Yeah.
this is a 100-year company, not a 5-year one.
Hmm.
So I'm glad I learned that lesson early rather than later.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this last time, but sometimes
Mm.
it can present a nice growth opportunity for other people within your organization, right?
Yeah.
And you think about all of these people and all of the different talents that they have, and sometimes some of their talents aren't being tapped into.
Hmm.
So when new opportunities present themselves, it can be a nice way to provide growth and a stretch opportunity, whether it's interim or long term,
Yeah.
for someone that we know. It's really important for people to be able to see a career path or a growth path for themselves within an organization. That's something
Mm.
that drives retention. And
Yeah.
so, oftentimes those really hard times when you have to dig deep and you're really lean and things are harder can
Yeah.
be those culture builders, right?
Yeah.
For the future.
Yeah, it's getting through some times of hardship together, and in particular, as a top leader of an organization, knowing that I think everybody else in the organization will take their beat from you, right? So
Mhm. Yeah.
if everything in front of you feels like these things feel critical and we have to get it right, and again, that is also the truth. That is
Yeah.
the truth of, like, in that first year or two, your reputation matters, delivery matters, execution matters.
Right.
And I'm glad I got through that time, and I'm so grateful for the people that helped me through that.
Hmm.
But learning the lesson early, I think is going to help. And kind of a bridge to that of the next major topic, which is like surprises, things. So the title of this conversation is "Life After Founding a Company."
Yeah.
And I'd bet there's a few surprises for you that you're like, I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah.
And you work through that now. So I'm curious to hear about those things. I'll start with a bridge from this first part of our conversation. And one of the things that surprised me most about this time is I thought that I was always going to have to be the person, the torchbearer of our
Hmm.
mission, our vision, our story,
Yeah.
and all of that. I had this thought that I'm always going to have to be that person,
Hmm.
and it isn't true, actually.
Yeah.
As we've brought people onto the team, as I've become a little bit more calm in my leadership,
Yeah.
um, the other people have come onto the team, and they can tell our story with as much belief and passion as I can, in
Yeah.
all honesty. So that has surprised me. And now that I know it, I can go into it thinking I don't have to be so protective as a storyteller, the sole storyteller. And if
Hmm.
you focus on letting other people feel it and embrace it, they will bear the
Yeah.
torch too. Yeah.
And you have to, in order to grow, at least the seat that I sit in, the
Mhm.
only way we'll grow is through people.
Yeah.
And so if I spend my whole every day and my whole time here being a bottleneck, or being, having to be the one person
Yeah.
that can only talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it,
Mm.
that's A, not effective for our growth, and B, does our team members a disservice.
Yeah.
And so I think about that, right? Like, I'm not going to be able to lead every single person in our organization, in the next year or two. And
Mhm.
so I have confidence in the incredible people leaders we have on our team to carry forward
Yeah.
that mission and that energy and the culture and all the things that I value
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. The bottleneck, that's a really good visualization also of, I ask myself how often I am the bottleneck for
Yeah.
progress on our team.
Mhm.
And so let's talk about the art of letting go a little bit, Christy. I'm
Mhm.
curious, 6 years in,
Yeah.
how you have evolved in that thinking of
Yeah.
how good are you at letting things go? And what's been the result of that?
Well, I have an interesting story around this,
Mm.
James, because about 3 years in, I was pregnant with my second little boy, well,
Yeah.
my second child. And he was born early, which meant NICU and meant,
Mm.
all the things that just take you away more than maybe you might have anticipated.
Yeah.
And so, having a baby, you can never perfectly time it, right? And you never know. So much is out of your control. And I remember thinking, I mean, this is the end of the world.
Oh,
Like, it
yeah.
is the worst timing. We're just, getting going. And here I am, physically unable to be in the office, and mentally really not able to be at my best for the organization.
Yeah.
And it was a stressful time all around, right? It was a stressful time personally, professionally. And now when I look back, I actually think what a gift,
Mm.
because what it did was it pulled me out of the equation, and it forced our business to figure out, and it forced the people in our business to figure out how to keep things moving and
Yeah.
how to keep things going. And not only did it probably give us some gifts in the process, it elevated everyone, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, Christie's not here. How does this work? I don't know. Let's figure it out. And so, certainly not anything I anticipated. And in the moment, I felt like was just the end of the world. But as I stepped back and I remember, talking to other founder friends, and they're like, wait, what? Your business still continued without you being there?
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, oh, like, this is how I have to continue to grow.
Absolutely.
Because, who knows? Anything could happen to anybody. And we have to be able to rely on each other to jump in and step up when the
Yeah.
time comes.
That's such a great lesson. Yeah, letting go for me of, especially when you feel like the idea, the genesis, those things,
Mhm.
if once they start here, it kind of ties to the earlier part of you always feel like you're gonna be the torchbearer of the story, and
Yeah.
realize, okay, the more I let go, it really is the art of letting go of
Mhm.
the only way that this exists, the vision of Bella Groves, the vision of Think Tank, or anything else I'm doing, I have to practice letting it go early
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let other people grow it. And
Mhm.
I think,
And usually it
yeah,
turns out way better than you ever dreamed,
true,
right? Like
true.
if you can give it up to someone whose talent you believe in, who you believe is there for the right reasons,
Yeah,
many, many times I look back and think, well, I never could have come up with that.
yeah,
Right? It's 10 times better now that there's more people involved and, smart brains thinking through it.
yeah. So now it's about proactively doing that. So not
Mhm.
incidentally letting it go,
Right.
but proactively letting it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have you, have on the spot here, but have you put that into practice for real? Like, can you think of times where you're like, I should be the one doing this, but I need to let
Yeah.
somebody else do it?
Yeah. I mean, every day purely because of the amount of things on my plate. And
Yeah.
I look at
Mm.
what all is on my plate and I know there's no way that I could effectively
Hmm.
execute on all of these things. And so I have to prioritize every day and say, okay, if I get 3 things done, what are the 3 that I
Mm.
am the one that has to do them? And what are the other ones that someone else could help? And I will tell you, my co-founder and other team members are always challenging me like, do you have to do that? Who could
Hmm.
help you with that? Who could take that on? And so having other people in on that to help me be in
Yeah.
my correct lane has been really helpful.
Yeah. Do you subscribe to the belief of done is better than perfect?
Well, you're asking a perfectionist.
Uh-huh.
So
I know.
I would struggle with that. I think that's one of my, what do you say, classic weaknesses is sometimes I can't get something across the finish line because
Yeah.
I just need it to be perfect. And I
Mhm.
surrounded myself with people on my team that can then take it at 95% and then
Yeah.
get it across the finish line for me.
I think that is one of the kind of subsets of learn to let it go is I I don't want to think of myself as a perfectionist, but I
Yeah.
know that that's a big part of that corners off a little bit, or there's a social media post I'm like, oh, that photo's a little bit,
Yeah. But
but
it's
mm,
not a flaw.
yeah.
I just try to what I think about is actually my perfectionism is something that makes me great and it's
Mhm.
something that got me as far as it has.
Yeah.
And now that I'm acutely aware of it, I
Hmm.
surround myself with people that can help level that out a little
Yeah.
and help look at me and say, we can't hold on to this for another week. Like
Yeah.
we've got to go. And so that's probably not going to just magically go away for me.
Yeah.
And so I've chosen to lean in and just own that it is what it is and be transparent with other people. I
Yeah.
mean, when we first started, even social media, I mean, I could craft all the posts, I could do all the things, and I could not press post.
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, I was like, I just need someone to press publish. And so, it's being aware of those things and
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with people that can, like, when you let it go, you trust that they'll handle the rest.
Yeah, yeah. I love this statement from Laura. That's good and something to address. I've leaned to excellence versus
Right.
perfection. That's a curious distinction.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Excellence versus perfection. What does that make you think of?
Oh, I
Mm,
mean, I think of them similarly, right? I
yeah.
mean, I just grew up in a career and a life, or I put the own pressure on myself that if it wasn't perfect, it wasn't excellent. So
Mhm.
that's one of those things that's hard for me
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. When I think about excellence versus perfection, there are a lot of moments where I've learned, and I am leaning into this more of, I'm trying to find the wisdom of done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Because we will always have to try. And that's one of the surprises of founding a company that I've really held on to is how much experimentation there is.
Yeah.
I, went into this believing you have to have a perfect strategy, you have to have everything
Mhm.
thought out. And I am a puzzle maker,
Yeah.
chess thinker person. I see a counterpart in you in that.
Yeah.
And to some degree, that's excellent. It's really, really helpful for people to know, here's stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
But also realizing I will be the bottleneck unless I lean into the spirit of experimentation. And
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of knowing which experiments to approve and which ones are like, that's definitely way too
Right.
far. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the idea of excellence as kind of a North Star. Because I think about dementia education and the things we're trying to do beyond caring for our residents. And I think excellence is just a matter of like 90%. Okay, that here's the stuff that worked. Let's get to 92%, and
Yeah.
let's kind of keep trudging along there. How much experimentation happens on your team?
Oh, a lot. And something I've been thinking about as you've been talking around that, excellence versus perfection, and when do you just pull the trigger on something. And I think back to our very early days when we're building the product and building the platform. And the question always becomes, when do we put it live? When do we put it live? And it's like, not yet, not yet. But you got to get it out there. And so at some point we had to say, we're putting it out there and we'll continue to improve. Right.
Yeah.
And I think we're human. And sometimes when it's not perfect, it can create opportunities for relationship building also, and for honesty, and for, look, we're trying to figure this out. Give us your feedback. What didn't work? What did work? What do you love? What do you not love? And you create an opportunity to really build a relationship and a feedback loop that maybe wouldn't have existed if everything just was seamless. Right?
Yeah. It's something I think about, I struggle with. And I feel like I'm going to enter a counseling session here with you, Christie, now. But here it is. It's thinking about, I am afraid of our first 1-star review. It's going to happen at some point in the company, right?
Yeah.
I'm afraid of the critical failure. I am. And these are things that you, especially in the early years, you feel like so much is riding on the reputation of our organization right now.
Yeah.
But I think when you hold on to that and you're worried about this cloud that may or may not come in all likelihood, it will. And knowing that that's something that is going to happen, is going to be a part of this. And if I don't let go of the control, and I don't let people experiment, and I don't let others fail, I don't know. It's hard. I struggle with it. Of like, if our management team is working with a resident's family, and I know that if I jumped in, I could probably divert, but I also forego their lesson in learning how to manage that. Right.
And that ultimately will hinder your own ability to grow and your organization's ability to grow.
Yeah. Would you knowingly, like, like you could jump in and probably make that project get to an A+. Would you knowingly allow a B- result, kind of favoring the big picture? Or like, how would you decide that? Or how do you decide that?
So I would look at the stakes, right?
Yeah.
Like if the stakes are high, probably not. If it's a low stakes situation and I can let someone learn from an experience, by all means, if it's not going to completely bring the house down, I want people to learn from those experiences. And so I do give people a pretty long leash. I try not to micromanage people's processes because everyone's going to get there in some way. And, I will assess, how high are the stakes on this one? How involved do I need to be? Or is this one that, I can let it go and the lesson will be more valuable than what we, experience from the mistake.
It's a lot of discernment that you have to have as a leader of like, is this a baby mistake or is this a critical one?
Right.
Yeah. But nobody learns without the mistake. So I think it's a blend of knowing, hey, there's a safety net below you here. Whether you get a win or a loss on this one, I've got you. This isn't going to be critical. But then once you make it through the little smaller mistake, okay, there's a little bit more consequential thing ahead of you. You got through the last one. Okay, let me help give you some thoughts, but you've got this. And you just got to trust that they're going to handle it.
Well, and half of it is that that person knows they have your confidence.
Yeah.
and they have your belief,
Mm.
right? And if they're in that mindset, they will perform differently than if they feel like you're watching over their shoulder, you're waiting for them to mess up, and it's
Yeah.
going to be a career breaking
Yeah.
situation, right? That no one's going to perform well with that feeling, that level of scrutiny.
Yeah.
But when you feel like someone believes in you and they know you can do it. I mean, I think back through my career, and I certainly wouldn't be sitting in this seat if I had not had people and mentors and coaches and leaders that saw my potential in me long before I ever saw it in myself,
Yeah.
and put me out in situations that I, never dreamed I would be able to live up to, but I did.
Yeah.
And so I feel that level of responsibility, quite frankly, to carry that forward with the people on my team and the people in my community as
Yeah.
well.
You've got to pay forward the trust that other people had
Yeah.
in you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about it, but I didn't realize we had a mutual connection in Katie Roan.
Yes. Actually, we worked in a former life together. So
That's amazing. Okay, so one of the things that's been maybe a surprise to me, and I don't know if it's a surprise, but financial success, and talk about this to your own degree of comfort here, Christie.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. So we're 3 years in. We're just hitting
Yeah.
our financial break even, not that long ago, a few months ago. In
Yeah.
my mind, even under conservative estimates, I thought that was going to be a bit earlier. And just kind of realizing like no company has limitless resources and money
Yeah.
coming in, right? At some
Yeah.
point, you gotta make money, you gotta move forward. So there have been a lot of financial things that, in the first 3 years, thinking about how slow is growth actually going to be. And then once you start experiencing the financial results of, okay, it looks like the business is going to make it.
Right.
How much do you continue to risk? How much do you pull back?
Yeah.
So big sister Christie, I'm wondering, I'm at another critical milestone for our organization. It looks like we're going to survive. Looks like we're
Yeah.
gonna make money, right? What would you be doing in this position, or what did you do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations, because that's, there are many founders that don't make it even that far.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's a forever thing on my mind, right? I'm not sure that I'll ever be in a position where I feel like it's something I don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
I think in some ways it's an advantage because it forces you to be scrappy and to be thoughtful and to spend in a way that's smart. I think it also goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of what are you ultimately trying to build?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, we have known since the beginning that we are playing the long game. And we're not out to just make a quick buck and have a customer for a few months and then move along, right? We want to do it right. We want to be valuable, indispensable partners to our clients, and we want to be here for the long haul. And so having that as your frame of reference changes the decisions you make on a daily basis, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It is something, when you have a big picture in mind, you have kind of a social good, right? Yeah. You have like the end picture for you, it sounds like, isn't a point of profitability or financial metric. It's more of what is that? I'm curious for you, for your care finder, what's the future condition that doesn't exist today that if it existed, you would feel like, all right, we contributed to that.
Yeah. I mean, everything that we do in my mind comes back to impact. So are we making the greatest positive impact for both consumers and providers in our industry and in the world, right? And so, what keeps me up at night is there is so much opportunity ahead and we can't physically move fast enough.
Yeah.
And so that's fun and exciting. And I know we've talked about before, working in the senior living and care space, the why behind your work is just there every day.
Yeah.
And so it makes it really easy to get up and get out of bed and, quite frankly, get through the hard times, and be resourceful and dig deep when maybe everything's not rainbows and unicorns, as my 5-year-old would say.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting journey that I don't know. I guess to your point is I don't know that there's like an end thing that I'll turn around and say, I've made it. We've made it. Obviously, you know, they say it's like, it's all about getting there in the process and the people around you as you go about it.